The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
With a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old paying $150,000 to study systemic oppression from a 29-year-old adjunct who lives in a Kia. A new OECD report finds that almost 1 in 5 American college students are at primary school level, which is fascinating considering public school spending doubled to nearly $18,000 per student. Yet, according to gold standard PISA scores, K-12s are losing an entire grade level per generation. Budget goes up, education goes down. It's blowing up since COVID. At UC San Diego, the share of first-year students showing up with primary school math exploded 30-fold in just 5 years. Interestingly, fully 1 in 4 of those math illiterates had received perfect math scores in high school. In case you wonder what they're doing in school, it ain't math. At Berkeley, up to 30% of students in calculus show, quote, severe deficits, forcing professors to reteach the courses they allegedly already passed. That's Berkeley, one of the top universities, also allegedly in the world. Even at Harvard, professors say they're shortening readings because students cannot handle complex prose or sustained attention. So how did we get here? Easy. Progressives captured government schools, turning them into indoctrination centers. One study found public school swings kids 20 points Democrat compared to private and religious schools. The most progressive districts, last year, 23 Baltimore schools had precisely 0 students proficient in math. In Detroit, 96% of students lack proficiency in math, 95% cannot read. Note, Baltimore and Detroit spend a third more per student than the rest of the country. Faced with quasi-illiterate high school grads, colleges have all but abolished standardized testing in favor of essays and soft assessments that let them sell degrees to the unprepared and let them dodge the Supreme Court ban on racial preferences. Can't prove discrimination if there are no standards. Almost 9 in 10 universities now have discarded standardized test requirements like SAT or ACT. That's up from half before the Supremes banned race. This all leaves the last man standing for accountability in our trillion-dollar education Ponzi, grades, which you'll be shocked to know are now meaningless. The percent of high school graduates with A or A+ more than doubled in the past 10 years, hitting more than half. 54% of high school grads had straight A's in math. Remember, 1 in 5 are at 10-year-old level. Gets worse at college. At Yale, for example, also allegedly one of the best schools in the world, fully 79% of students get straight A's. Meanwhile, professors are apparently unable to figure out what's done by AI. One study of 500,000 grades found that since ChatGPT, the most AI doable courses like creative writing had a 30% jump in grades compared to the others. In short, the education system has become a trillion-dollar counterfeiting, cranking out $150,000 college degrees and $250,000 worth of K-12 that are nearly meaningless. So what's next, brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. The solution for K-12 is easy. Give power back to parents instead of communist education unions. So vouchers, school choice, homeschooling, private and parochial schools that are allowed to set their own standards and curriculum. For universities, a return to standardized testing and in-person proctored exams so they can prove if they're actually teaching anything. America will not remain the top economy in the world if kids are being indoctrinated instead of educated. The unions and colleges will fight hard. For them, this is existential. But if the system does not change, a no-skills Gen Z will continue voting to burn it all down.
So, being my producer and my resident 30-year experience teacher in the educational system, interested in your thoughts on that breakdown of our.
You didn't tell me that I was going to watch.
Yeah. I wanted you to be surprised.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm actually glad you didn't. There's a lot of the usual crap in there, but he's not completely wrong.
What do you disagree with?
I don't. What do I agree with?
Disagree with.
I disagree with the overall premise, I feel there is some indoctrination, but it's not to the level that they think that there is. I think that what he fails to put any accountability on in that conversation at all is the parents. He didn't put any accountability on expectations of parents, guardians, that kids are supposed to come in and be successful.
Okay.
That is a big problem. That has been a big problem. It was my entire career. I am not saying that parents are completely to blame. I also feel that a lot of people, I don't think schools are perfect. I'd be the first person to have criticisms of schools. It's not about because let's put it this way: the conservative schools, the ones that are in states that are conservative, they're not doing any better either. Texas is an incredibly conservative state, and education-wise, they used to be 7th in the nation. They're now 37th or 38th in terms of ranking.
Where's New York?
New York hovers. I don't even know where they are right now because I've kind of lost track of it. But I did see Texas used to set the standard for federal for education in terms of textbooks and a lot of those things. But they have dropped 30 places. So that is not a progressive state. That's not a state where the kids are being indoctrinated. So it's a bigger problem than curriculum. I think we overdid it with test taking for a while when we did No Child Left Behind. I think everything became about tests, and we got away from making learning I don't think we've put too much focus on testing and learning. And now schools are pendulums. So now they're swinging the other way where they're getting rid of too much testing instead of having tests that make sense. I've definitely heard that from a lot from colleges that the kids aren't coming in. I think a lot of it has to do with that schools handled COVID terribly, that we have a generation of kids that are working through the school systems that we focused completely on just getting the kids to come to school because so much else was going on with COVID. I don't think there's a level of indoctrination that they try to talk about because I said the states that are conservative are doing the same thing. We're trying to bring the Bible back into the classrooms in some states, and like that, that's just indoctrination too. So it's not like it's trying to just teach the kids stuff. And you and I have talked about we should be teaching financial literacy. We should be teaching practical things,
daily living skills. Yeah,
daily living skills.
I
mean, I don't disagree with everything he has to say. He's completely right that schools were failing. We're failing our kids, but I also feel there's a lot of reasons why, and it's not just the school systems. I think a lot of it has to do with like parents and guardians are not making sure they're not being partners with education, and there's he's not completely wrong, but I think some of the blame where he's picking where the blame is a little off, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up and we talk about that is because of the debt-based Ponzi scheme that is the US dollar. I have a tweet up here. This is that 4-minute video was just one cog of this greater conversation that I want to have. The tweet says, "Isn't it weird how unsubsidized consumer goods like TVs, appliances, clothes all get cheaper and cheaper, while anything government puts its hands on, healthcare, housing, food, tuition, cars, utilities, just gets more and more unaffordable? Oh, well, probably nothing." And there's a lot of truth to that. Like, I agree with that a lot. And so tuition is involved in there. So, we can debate back and forth about the K through 12 model. And I think there's a lot of problems with K through 12. I think you do too.
I think the model is old.
I think you do too. But the greater conversation when it comes to education, in my opinion, is the tuition piece when you go to higher learning, educations of higher learning. And especially with what's happening like in real time with AI, I don't know how you justify these continually rising tuition costs when AI exists now and is only going to get better and is going to optimize and make more efficient people getting through any sort of curriculums. So to justify tuition costs going up instead of going down, I don't know how with a straight face anybody in higher education can say it's worth the ticket price now.
Why do you think that why do you think that state budgets are ballooning in education, whether it's a local budget or the state budget? Why do you think the education budgets are going up? Why do you think?
Why do I think they're going up?
Yeah.
Because you got so many pockets to grease now.
But
it's not to educate a child better or to educate an adult or whatever you're doing it for, whether it be the K through 12 model or you're doing it for the education of higher learning. It's not about education. It's about salaries. It's about somebody getting more money because of the debt-based Ponzi scheme and the fact that so many dollars are out there and everybody's trying to get them, and tuition and the higher education system is no different. So I don't think that the money that more budgets being larger is equating to a smarter population or a more educated population.
In general, in this country, not in states like New York and some other states, and I don't know the charts anymore because been out for a while. Like, teachers don't make a lot of money in this country. They don't. New York State, they do very well. They do very well in New York State, but in a lot of states, states with terrible test scores, by the way, that are not progressive states, they're probably where they pay the teachers the least, and their test scores are the worst. So the states that I would call conservative states and not progressive states, they're some of the worst. We can go through the map, and you could guess which states have terrible education, and they always have. So it's not like those states have gotten any better. We do underpay teachers in general. So I do think the money that's being spent in education is not going to the right place.
I have to push back on that.
Yeah,
I have to push back on that. And I had a feeling, but I did a search, an AI search, just to be sure, because I didn't want to spout off on something that wasn't true. So according to AI, which is scanning everything, the average full-time teacher and let me put the question I put in first before I read the answer. What is the average salary in the United States compared to the average U.S. salary? Because you're saying that we're paying teachers less.
In a lot of states, not across the board, in a lot of states.
So here's what AI spit out for us. The average full-time teacher salary in the United States is $74,495. Higher than I thought it would have been, honestly, if I'm being honest.
Higher than I thought it would be.
But that's the average across the United States. While teachers typically earn a higher salary than the overall national average, around $65,100 for teachers versus $51,000 for all other U.S. occupations, experts note that this is largely because most teachers hold bachelor's degrees when compared to other similarly college-educated professionals. Teachers face an estimated 12 to 17% pay gap. State disparities, which is what you were talking about. Teachers in states like New York and California average over 90 to 100 grand, where states like Mississippi and Florida fall closer to 53 to 55. High school teachers report the highest average salaries around 72.3, while preschool teachers around 56.8. Starting salaries, the national starting teacher salary starts at $48,000. So if the average salary in the United States is 51, and the average teacher is almost starting at that average salary, okay, I would say we're paying teachers overall then more than everybody else.
Then I'm wrong. I mean,
I only brought that up because I remember being old enough to, like, when I got into teaching, because I went to school in the 90s, like, the ideology was that we don't pay teachers enough. But I think over the last quarter century, that has dramatically changed. But I think the perception hasn't. We still think we don't pay teachers enough. And I don't know. I don't know if the conversation is whether we pay them enough or not. But I think they're getting paid pretty good compared to what everybody else is getting paid. So I don't know about the conversation in regards to what we should be paying teachers to teach. But in regards to what we pay teachers, in regards to everything else, they're getting paid more.
The changes I think we have to make to education is we have to change the work year. I feel like, and teachers don't want to hear it, and I'm retired now, so I can say it, I do feel like the summer vacation is pretty long. I do feel like they have to try to change the way. I'm not saying that you should just make the summers look like everything else, but I definitely think like summer should be a time where you do some type of remedial program to get kids caught up, because you don't have time to do it during the year. So you need a summer school intensive program where it's just built in. And the kids that don't need the remedial, give them extra things or give them work study or do something different. Now, high school is a little bit different. Once they get to about 10th grade, we know you're going to lose those kids because a lot of them work. So I'm talking about K through like 9th grade. Before they can technically get a job, there should be more things where if a kid is behind in his reading level, that's what the summer should be. There should be a portion of the year where that is addressed, whether it's we go to trimesters. I mean, there's probably research that shows what they should do. And it should be like there should be something. Maybe they need to go to a more of a European model where, where some kids are put in an instructional plan. There needs to be a complete overhaul the way we do public education.
You're bringing up a good point. You're bringing up a good point too, because I'm going to say something that's going to come off as blasphemy. You were a teacher. I taught for 6 years. Like, I'm going to say something, and before I say it, I'm going to tell you I don't agree with this thought process because I did it for 6 years and I know what it means to be a teacher. But the overwhelming part of the population that's never taught a day in a classroom before is going to look at these numbers, right? Because we just gave you the raw numbers. Teachers are making $65,000 on average compared to $51,000, which is $14,000 more than the average salary, while also working 2 months less than everybody else. So they're making $14,000 more and working 2 months less. Now, we were both teachers, you for much longer than me, and we understand what that means for those 10 months. Like, you are doing a lot. You earn that salary. But to the general public that doesn't know what that means, they just see you're working for 10 months and you're making more than the average person. Why are you complaining about teacher salary? Not you, Rich, but I'm saying like the perception of that.
I've had this conversation with people for years. Like, it's a salary position. We don't get overtime.
Right. I'm defending the side that you're, but I'm giving the devil's advocate side.
We aren't getting overtime. There's no overtime. If you want additional pay, you have to pick up additional
jobs. Yep.
Mm-hmm. My concern is, in general, I don't think a lot of people that are teaching are getting the right career counseling to go into it. I'm going to say it. I worked with a lot of bad teachers.
Me too. Yeah.
In the defense of bad teachers, a lot of them, I don't know. I think they were probably better when they were newer, but they got beaten down really bad. The same way, like, I think a police officer, a security guard in a prison, a nurse in a hospital, it's a very difficult job. I don't feel like you get enough. I was very lucky for the most of my career, had very good principals. But in general, it's a tough job. And I don't necessarily think like there's enough. We aren't addressing. Can we
go backwards for a second, because you're bringing up a really good point too, and this goes back to the original part of the conversation. All the money it costs to go to college, you are not, and I'll say this because I went to school for 4 years. You are not being properly prepared to be a teacher, because you're wasting the first 2 years that you're there, taking all these bullshit electives that are just basically lining the pockets of all the things that we're talking about.
Whether it's a private school or a state school, it's the same crap.
The last
I'm not teaching chemistry. Why do I have to take a chemistry class if I'm teaching algebra? Like, if you want to have more classes within that department, that says, okay, this is how chemistry is used in math. This is what an English teacher should know about chemistry. Like, there should be specifics that recognize other curriculums, that things that tie it together. But to make me spend all that money to take chemistry, which I'm not going to incorporate, and it's not, and we all know that it has nothing to do about like, it's a diverse, it's a liberal arts curriculum. That's not what it is. That's not what it is at all. Like, make the electives part of what I'm actually teaching. In terms of actual, and again, I'm old, so it's better now, but there aren't as many teacher prep classes that you take. A lot of them are just curriculum in the area you're going to teach. So like, if you're teaching math, I'm learning about differential equations, which does not trickle down to a 9th grade algebra. It doesn't. That was my certification. I wish I would have gotten more classes on how to be a disciplined teacher, how to motivate. I wish I would have gotten more as a student, and I think they're better now than it used to be, but it's still very much the same.
You're as a teacher, you're going to school for 4 years, and then you're doing a semester of student teaching. You're basically thrown to the wolves. Most people are completely unprepared for that experience. I mean, I felt like my personality type helped me more than anything I learned in
I
school.
would agree.
So I think that you should, I mean, when you do an internship at a job, some people intern for like 2 years before they actually get a position. So I think you should be doing like classroom management, teaching, whatever that looks like, for longer than one semester is nowhere near enough.
Yep.
And then by the time, like, then you're in as a substitute, and then you're literally thrown to the wolves because nobody's with you.
Well, like my wife's a school psychologist, and she works in a public school. As for the audience that doesn't know that, her interns she has for an entire year.
Mhm.
They're with her for an entire
Yeah.
year, and they did a practicum before they did the internship. So yes, in most states, New York State especially, there is more time in the classroom now to get you ready, and actually, if anything, to weed you out. Like in general, in college education, my criticism with college education is they don't do enough to really expose you to the career until sometimes you're in your 4th year, and then you're like, well, what? I got to finich it now because I don't want to switch my major now. I'm already wasted all this money, so I'm going to get my degree in education or bioengineering, and I don't even want to do that anymore because I decided when I was 17 that I was going to do that. I have major complaints about it. I don't. My only criticism of that discussion was I don't think it's because of the curriculum. The curriculum's not the issue. The curriculum is got problems, but we're not doing enough. And schools have adjusted. We have pre-K programs, and we have early intervention programs, and we have more kids that are getting IEPs now, so they're getting individualized instruction plans. But at the end of the day, like, you have to have support, and you have to have the other side of the people that were with the kid more than you are to say education's important.
The biggest,
I just don't know if that's the case anymore.
The biggest travesty, I hate a lot. I think a college is a complete waste. I honestly and truly hope neither of my kids go to college. My view of college is about as bad as, and I have a master's degree, and it's about as bad as you can potentially have on college. However, my biggest gripe with college, beyond the cost, beyond the time waste, beyond all the bullshit classes that you take, my biggest gripe, and this isn't going to surprise you, Rich, my biggest gripe is that I went to school for a profession where the expectation was you're going to get a bachelor's, and if you want to keep doing this, you have to get a master's. So you're going to be what's considered highly educated, highly qualified, all that bullshit that they toss out there. Not one class was thrown at me with an expectation of financial management.
I agree.
So you're going to give me a career that's supposed to be a good living wage. And we just went through it. They're making more than the average person. And you're never once given a course on how to manage the money that you're going to make. You didn't get it in high school, but you would think that by the time you get to college, and you're going to be making a good living wage, that somewhere across the way, somebody in the higher education field would think to allow you to learn how to manage money. And in our society, education and knowledge does not equate to understanding money by any stretch of the means. Some of the absolute dumbest people when it comes to having conversations about money are the most highly educated. I bounce my head off the wall talking to people on social media that have master's degrees, doctorates, lawyers. Like, they just think because they're so educated and they have these great degrees that they know everything when it comes to money. And they may even have way more money than I have, and they don't understand what money is. And it's because they're never taught it. And the fact that you had, like he said in that opener, that video that we shown, $100,000, $150,000 you're graduating college with in debt, and not one conversation, not one class is being given to you on how to effectively manage that money.
I agree. And I feel like one of the things where we drop the ball is and I don't want to pick on counselors, guidance counselors, because they're no more bigger or lesser part of the problem than anyone. And I'm not just speaking about just a place that I work. I think in general, I feel like we do not do enough just to talk about kids, like whether it's in a specific classroom or by the beginning of their 11th year, like, what are you thinking you're going to do? Do you like, I mean, they used to do the ASVAB test. Remember those tests that you have to fill out and it would say you should go with your hands or you like whatever.
Do they do that anymore?
Do that anymore.
Yeah.
But if they need to be doing more of those kinds of things, and there should be a workshop or something with your counselor or a mandatory thing for seniors or whatever it is, like where they say, like, this is how long it's going to cost you how long it's going to take you to pay off a, 3 semesters of college or 8 semesters of college or whatever it turns out to be. And what a compounded annually, like, you know what I mean? Like what a predatory loan is. I definitely agree with that. There's definitely an issue with those kinds of things. We have teachers that are in severe debt because they, had to get their master's degree, and they should. I think teachers should have to get a master's degree.
Why?
Because I do feel like they should be highly educated.
So a master's degree makes you highly educated.
I feel like if
in the day today of AI, you think that's still maybe 20 years ago, but you think today that's necessary?
I do. I feel like I got a lot of better concepts about my teaching career in my master's degree than I did in my undergrad. So maybe those classes could be dense down if they got rid of the bullshit. Like if I didn't have to take gym. Why am I taking phys ed in college? Why am I taking phys ed in college? Why?
I went to school for phys ed, so I don't know. I don't know what the curriculum is. Yeah, no, I understand.
You didn't take differential equations.
No, well, I had to take. No, I had to take math.
But you took.
No, I did.
A math class.
Yeah, which I thought was a complete waste of my time.
That's my point. Why?
Complete waste of my time.
I was a runner at the time, so I took running because I was already running. So I didn't learn anything because I didn't learn anything about sports. I mean, I can learn sports. If I was to be a gym teacher, I would have to take.
I fundamentally.
The classes you took were, this is what the rules of volleyball. Like you learn things that we're going to apply to the classroom.
I think you still have like a little bit of, I don't want to use indoctrination. That's not the right word, but like you still have a little bit of the philosophy of like you taught for so long and you were successful, you were a good teacher, and you were around as many bad ones as you were around your fair share of good ones as well. And the old school model of getting the master's degree was what made some of those people be good teachers. I think in 2026 and beyond, with the amount of information we have at our fingertips with AI, the ability to more efficiently do things, the fact that you have to go to school for a whole year and spend all that money to get a and again, maybe it's still called a master's degree, but it looks different. And maybe I'm getting caught up in the wording, but like the traditional, like amount of time that needs to be spent to get that master's degree should be significantly slashed.
I would agree with that.
Significantly slashed. You can still call it that, but like it shouldn't be. Yeah.
It shouldn't take 5 years. You can do it in 4 years, let's say. The other thing that is a problem that you've touched on several times, AI is a major problem for education. Every time we get technology, public education and the government is, and private education too, is severely behind in terms of how they're going to deal with it. AI is a problem. Now, the better teachers always figure out how to take care of technology. Like whether it was a calculator, whether it was a PC, whether it was you could Google the answers to the question, whatever it is, like the good teachers have always found a way. And I have friends that are very good who changed when they started realizing the kids were using chat and what's the other one, and to do
Claude, Copilot,
all of them,
Gemini.
They were using them too. So they knew what the answers the kids were going to turn in were.
But
and
you can't
tell the kids and I don't like Kathy Hochul at all. I don't like her as a governor. But one of the things they did do is they tried to get technology, the cell phones, Google, things like that out of the classroom this year, especially at the high school level, because
I support that.
Successful.
I support that.
But I think that was a good idea because then kids have to be more interactive. Cell phones is a much, much bigger problem in high school than indoctrination.
It is. But the pushback that I'll have is I don't think they should be fighting kids using AI because that's where society is going. Everybody, adults, I'm using AI every day. Yeah. So why would you be trying to encourage kids not to do that? I think one of the best parts of AI, like my kids come home from school and they got homework and they're like, hey, Dad, can you help me with homework? Grab your fucking phone. Like, what are we talking about here? Punch it in AI. Because that's what I'm like when I'm operating my everyday life. I am trying to be as efficient as possible. So effectively,
remember when you used to write a paper when we were in school many years ago, you would have to like quote your sources.
Yeah.
And say, I used this and this is what I Googled. Like explain, like teach the kids how to use AI correctly and how to know, like how to and know the consequences of like what's going to happen with these.
I've done it twice in this real time of this podcast.
Yeah.
We've been having
For
conversations and I've used AI to assist us in driving the conversation that we're having. And in my work life, in my personal life, there's just so many times. And I think we should be encouraging.
They were incorporated in IN. I'm sure, like my friend Amy, who just retired, I guarantee you, she told me that at one point she was using AI to get prompts, and then they used
100%
points. And guess what? The kids were very active in their learning, and those kids, again, she's probably the best teacher I've ever met. Like she always flowed in the classroom. I was a technology teacher for the second half of my career, so I used technology all the time. So I was always looking at ways to incorporate the newest technology, and I would have to fight with the school district, the central office, like when YouTube was a new thing. I wanted YouTube to be a big part of what I was teaching. I teach technology. I use it, using it right now.
Right.
And they fought me on YouTube like it was like, oh, it's kind of sketchy. It's kind of like porn. And I'm like, it's YouTube. Like people are using it as a search engine. Like, no, you don't know what you're talking. No, we can't allow the kids to have access to YouTube. They thought it was like, it was almost like a calculator. Like we can't,
it's because the educational, because the educational system is like last to the party. They're just last to the party.
Yeah.
They think they know. And again, it goes back to what I already said. People with education think they're smart about everything. If you're a doctor and you went to school to be a doctor, it doesn't mean that you can go try a case in a courtroom. It doesn't mean that you know everything when it comes to money. It doesn't mean that you know everything when it comes to any other specialized area just because you have a doctorate degree and being a doctor. Like
people that have too much education do have a conceit about that.
100%.
But many
100%.
And they'll tell you on a regular basis how educated they are. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we spent the first half of the podcast talking about education, which is good. I think it's a lot of that draws back to the debt-based Ponzi scheme that we talk about and why we have these problems because the money is broken. We can pop this up real quick. Today, Brent crude oil prices surged above $90 a barrel as the Iran war escalates. I had a conversation this past weekend with my best friend. Both of our kids play travel baseball together, and we were in between games. And I was talking about how, like, we never got, like, barrel prices dropped from 115 to, like, the 60s, and we never really got a chance to get, in New York State at least, the average price has been over $4. So we've never got an opportunity to get that price to come back down. We never felt that because it was coming down so slow. And then before we know it, now we're rocking it back up, getting close to $100, and we're never going to get under a $4 in New York State. So it looks like we're trending back. I have to be honest. Like, I got kind of just fatigue from all this Iran war stuff that we won it like 47 times. So I wasn't in for the 48th and the 49th, and I kind of been pulling back on some of the political stuff, but it looks like things are escalating again. It looks like from some of the things that I'm reading that we have shortages. I read some here it is. This one here, crude oil has only 43 days of supply left in the US, the lowest inventory in 45 years. So we're depleting our strategic reserve. And the longer this goes, I can't think that that's a good thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Rich?
I mean,
what do we
kind of been following the crude oil thing, but I got to bring that chart back up because that is ridiculous. Wow.
Yeah.
That is just, I mean, obviously we know why it was really super high in 2020 because we weren't using very much oil, but that's crazy. And no one's talking about that.
Somebody asked Grok, Bank of America chart reflects data as of June 26th. Latest EIA week ending July 10th. Commercial crude 409.7 million barrels. SPR 316.5 million barrels, total 726 million barrels. Refinery input 17.1 days of supply, including SPR, still near multi-decade lows amid ongoing draws from geopolitical disruptions. Next EIA report, July 20th. What's today? July 20th. So in 2 days, we'll get another report. So then it asked, based on the latest data, 720 total. That's roughly 42 days of supply, still near multi-level lows. So we have a 42-day supply of our strategic petroleum reserve. So when do we get to a point where we just can't keep up? And that's when the supply demand thing really takes shape, and we get those crazy $200 a barrel predictions that we thought we were going to get before.
But don't worry, our non-socialist government opened up gas stations, so it's all good. And that was what are we doing? I don't even know who's making money off of that. And that's my problem. I don't feel like there's anybody who have their hands on the wheel with anything of any importance anymore, whether it's Congress, whether it's the Senate, whether it's the administration. I don't feel like anybody's administrating anything. I feel like all these departments that we have now are doing everything except what they should be doing. We're having meetings with this lettuce company instead of just telling the lettuce company to fix their shit. And all of a sudden, it was a false test. It's a false test. All these stores, somehow all those stores ended up with all the bad lettuce only from the one plant. Come on. We're not fixing the problem. We're covering things up now. And it's we spend more time, this president and his people spend more time talking about a reflecting pool than they spend and Lionel Messi winning the World Cup than what's going on in the economy. They just don't care, because they're not, you say it all the time, inflation doesn't affect them. It doesn't. They don't care. They're just getting rich, and everybody they know is getting rich. They don't care.
So we buried the lead. We were going to talk about our national debt. So I want to show this tweet here because it's important that we really focus on what's happening here. Our national debt sits at around $39.5 trillion right now. Per citizen, that equals to $114,751. Per taxpayer, that's $356,989. U.S. federal spending, $7.2 trillion. U.S. federal budget deficit is around 1.6. U.S. Treasury Reserve, what's that say? 32 million. Restitution, 87.2. So the bottom of the screen here is what we're going to talk about really quickly. So the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio we're going to talk about. So I punched it up in AI real quick. Third time we're using AI during this. So the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio currently sits at 122% to 125%. You want to get this up on the screen, Rich, so the viewers can see it too while I'm reading it. Reflecting a total national debt exceeding, and this was 37 trillion, but it's 39.5 as we just saw. Different metrics and SOAPs impacts this ratio depending on how debt is measured. Debt held by the public. This figure measures what the government owes to outside lenders, including individuals, investors, and foreign governments. It sits at over 100% of GDP, making it the highest level since the immediate aftermath of World War II. Total gross federal debt. This includes the debt held by the public, plus intergovernmental debt, money the government owes to its own trust funds, like Social Security, which is another conversation. This broader gross measure brings the ratio to roughly 125%. So if we go down here, what is a good debt to GDP ratio? For developed economies like the United States, economists generally consider a debt to GDP ratio of 60% or lower to be healthy and sustainable. This threshold gives a government enough fiscal flexibility to respond to economic downturns or crisis without threatening its ability to service its obligations. The U.S. currently sits double that. So let's go back to this chart. In 1960, we were in a super healthy spot, way under 60%, 52.63. In 1980, we were even better. 34.62%. From 1960 to 1980, we almost cut it in half. In 2000, which is rich, that's quarter century ago. I mean, it's not that long ago. 57%. Today we're at 122.
Yeah.
I keep saying this like over and over again on social media, and people ignore me, make fun of it, don't understand, tell me to stop tweeting about Bitcoin, tell me to stop posting about that stuff, go to a concert. Like, this is not sustainable. Our current economic path, which drives everything, right? The finances drive everything. I got into a debate with another one of my best friends talking about, he thinks the root cause, like he falls in line with a lot of what the right thinks about in regards to immigration being the reason for all of our problems. And I said, the only reason why immigration is a problem is because money is broken. And he's like, no, it's not. It's because people come into this country. I said, people are coming to this country because the money printers reside here. This is where the money printers are. So people come here because we print money at will, and that's the American dream. The American dream is to come where they print money perpetually. If we didn't print money perpetually, nobody would come here. Where's all the people going to Mexico? Where's all the people going to these third world countries? They don't. They come here. They go to Europe. They go to the closest countries that are closest to the United States. So our money is broken. Because our money is broken, people flood here. Immigration would stop if we either backed our dollar with a hard asset or we just fixed the money entirely. There would be no motivation for people to come here if our money was sound. Because it's fiat, that's why we have an immigration problem. Look back to when we had immigration problems. Immigration problems start in the 60s and 70s. The 60s is when we unofficially went off the gold standard. 1971 is when we officially went off the gold standard. I was made aware of an act that was an immigration act. You might know the name, the Hart Act or something, from 1964 or 1965 was like an immigration act where it was kind of immigration, it was kind of civil rights, but we have talked about many times in this podcast, during that Vietnam War, we were stopping the unofficial gold standard. We were sending money to Vietnam. We were sending money to the military covertly. And the rest of the world was like, hey, what's going on? Like, you guys are definitely printing more dollars than you have gold to back it. And Nixon came out in 71 and said, I'm going to defend the dollar against the speculators. Well, who were the speculators? The people that saw that we were no longer backing our dollar by gold. And then we officially went off the gold standard. And then you can go to what the fuck happened in 1971 and see basically society cascade since then. I mean, look, 1980, 34%, 2000, 57%. And here we are at 122%. We have nothing backing our dollar. Our money is fake. It's fugazi. We're sitting at 39.5. Rich, I'll ask you the question. What is the plan to address the national debt? What direction are we going in?
There's no plan.
If you had to guess, which direction are we going?
It's going up.
40 plus or below 40?
It's going up. It's going to continue to go up.
When does it stop?
I don't think it stops when basically there is no way there's nowhere for it to go up, because you can't.
The stop is the economic collapse.
Yeah,
is the total reset. That's when it stops.
That's what people don't get. Like, so a simple thing too is like, because the banks are cause of the problem too, because it's like, we're selling my mother's house who had passed away. So we're selling the house. So just for shits and giggles, my wife and I went on Rocket Mortgage to see what we were approved for a mortgage. Now I'm retired. We were approved for something like $650,000 that we could afford to buy that house. How on earth could I, at 59 years old, how is a bank giving me a loan for $650,000 for a house when I'm retired? Like, I'm making my pension, but like, what? Like, it's it's just flabbergasted because we're doing this again. But it's we all continue to spend. I mean, whether it's college loans, it's all this stuff. We just keep spending money, somehow thinking it's all going to work out. And again, but then we also have things that we're doing, like this war is ridiculous. You know, they're asking for more money because they ran out of things, and the things that they have to use are the most expensive weapons ever created. Like the weapons they're using right now that that they're hitting Iran with are not weapons that they make. You know, I think they make like, some of them they only make 100 a year. How much is that weapon costing us? Like, Russia. I mean, when we were kids, when I was kid, I remember Russia invading Afghanistan, and we
in the 80s. Was that in the 80s?
Yeah, no, like late the end of, it's basically the beginning, the end of the Cold War. I mean, it was,
but Bin Laden was a part of that, right? We were funding Bin Laden.
The funny thing, yes, like again, there's a Pierce Brosnan. No, it's the other guy. The one the James Bond before him, like Timothy Dalton. In one of the Timothy Dalton movies, he's working with a Pakistani rebel who's fighting the Russians. And the guy is Osama bin Laden.
Based on Osama bin Laden.
He's based on Osama bin Laden. Who are the two biggest guys that we fought against outside of Putin in the last 30 years?
Saddam
and Osama bin Laden. Who bankrolled both of those guys? The United States.
I don't want to get into a political discussion here. No, I know, but I want to make a point.
It's about the spending. We spend money, and we laughed at Afghanistan for going bankrupt, fighting Afghanistan. We're doing the same thing with Iran.
I want to make a point for my friends on the right that are convinced that the end of this country is going to be Muslims overtaking us. And it's like, we are the ones that created this whole problem. The Muslim world, or whatever part of the Muslim world, doesn't like us is because of the stuff that we've done in the Middle East. And one of those things is we literally created Osama. So like, when you really want to get technical, who do you blame for 9/11? Conspiracy theories aside, if it was straight up and the conspiracies are all false, at the very least, we were the ones who created the monster that carried it out.
And Saddam Hussein, too. We funded Saddam Hussein because we were mad at Iran. And that's led to the Iran-Iraq war for 8 years because we funded Saddam Hussein. And then all of a sudden we realized we'd funded, like, oh God, this guy's gonna be a problem. And then we turned around and did it 10 years later with Osama bin Laden. Like it's again, how much money did we spend? And those things, that doesn't even spend. You look at the amount of those monies don't even seem like very much, but you're right. I agree with that position on the right, that the reason why the world, especially that part of the world, hates us so much is because what we've done to interfere with that part of the world. And we've been doing it since 1953.
I punched into AI while you were talking. What are the odds that the United States ever pays off its national debt? The probability that the United States ever pays off its national debt is effectively 0%. Modern economies do not operate like households, and completely eliminating the national debt is neither realistic nor economically desirable for several reasons. And I'm not even going to get into all of it. It's basically because that's how the debt-based Ponzi scheme works. We are a debt-based system. That means the debt never gets paid off. It only gets added to. And when the debt gets added to, it means that your dollar continues to devalue year after year, year after year, at an accelerating pace that wages do not keep up with. That is the problem. That is what happened. In the 1770s, we revolted for what? 2% taxes on tea? And here we are in the 2020s, and people just bury their head in the sand and just take it and want to talk about what TikTok videos going on. And just say tax the rich, or say trillionaires shouldn't have all this money. They want to complain about things, but they don't want to address what the actual problem is. The money's broken. Full stop. Everything comes back to the money. And I will debate anybody on this podcast that wants to tell me something differently, because it all comes back to broken money. If the game that you're playing has broken rules, the game doesn't work. The game doesn't play correctly.
It's a really good point, because I can say something like, well, if they didn't do this, and you're going to be like, yeah, but it doesn't matter because the money's still broken. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. Like, because until you say something like, until Congress has some balls or whatever to say to a president,
they're all close to the money printer. It never happens.
Like saying like, you can't have that. You can't. We're cutting the funding. Like they don't have the guts to do it, and that there's no checks and balances anymore. So because they're all kind of benefiting from it, whether it's stock market, whatever it is, that and they realize that nobody's voting them out for a real. They vote you out. We vote you out for silly reasons, and that's why the Congress will probably flip in November. But it's not like because they're not it's not like they're voting people in that they think are going to reduce the deficit. That's not, I don't even know, like, while you got your AI there, where do people rank the deficit on their crises for the country? Like, when you rank the political issues or election issues, I'm going to guess it's like 6th.
Americans generally rank the national debt as a very big problem for the country, but consistently place it as a second-tier priority behind immediate financial concerns like inflation and healthcare costs. National polling reveals that about 64% of voters consider the federal deficit a major issue.
But it's not number one on the list, right?
No.
It's definitely not number one. Whether it's inflation, whether it's gas prices, whether it's I don't know, like Taylor Swift. I don't know where we rank things. Like,
it doesn't even compute. It won't even. What percent of the American population understands that the money is broken? It doesn't compute. There's no precise poll showing what percentage of Americans specifically state the money is broken. Using macroeconomics or fiat collapse terminology, however, broad public opinion data reveals that a sweeping majority of Americans feel the financial system is failing them, even if they describe it in terms of personal hardship rather than the monetary mechanics. A record high 55% of Americans state that their personal finances are actively worsening. This is the highest level of pessimism recorded since the tracking began in 2001, surpassing the economic anxiety felt during the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2008 Great Recession. That's a phenomenal stat right there. So people are feeling more anxiety about finance than they did during an almost economic global collapse and when they thought they were going to die from a flu. Right now, they feel more economic anxiety, but they just don't understand why it's happening, and that's the problem.
Well, and politicians are very good at jumping in and blaming illegal immigrants or space lasers or whatever it might be. I mean, we do know there are a ton of reasons, things that the United States could stop doing, and like people mistakenly thought that Elon Musk and Doge, like whatever his committee was called, was going to fix something, and then they didn't fix anything. If anything, the departments that they shrunk led to more problems, which is going to cost us more money to fix the problems. That whether it's again like EPA inspections and CDC stuff like that is now leading to problems. Like they were never really, but people had faith that this guy and his people were going to fix them, and they're just a different guy doing the same crap the previous ones did.
So this economy right now is basically hanging on by a thread. AI is driving everything. Basically, if it wasn't for AI and the AI innovation right now, we would probably be in a straight up recession. Semiconductors are now 14% of the market. At the peak of the dot-com bubble, the number everyone points to as peak insanity was 8%. We're double that. So the dot-com bubble, peak insanity was 8%, heavily weighted at that time. We are almost double that right now. U.S. semiconductors market cap weighting. Look at this right here. the bottom, which was in 2023, which was 3 years ago, we're 4 times where we were 3 years ago. No, I'm sorry. More than that. We're almost at 2%. So like probably all 3. So we're like 5 times, about 5 times higher in 3 years. Again, I get back to the word that people get, they feel funny when I say it. All of this is not sustainable. None of this is sustainable. None of what's happening right now is sustainable at all. And I think we have one of the most dangerous presidents right now to be in office, because you have one side that just hates him so much and another side who has people that will defend him no matter what. But even more dangerous than that, some people have just walked away and they're not on either side and they're just not paying attention to anything. So all this stuff can happen with nobody really doing anything about it. And it's not necessarily a Trump thing per se. I'm blaming him. I'm just blaming the ideology that exists because of him. That we are on a crash course for something pretty damn sick. I don't know when it happens, and I really hope it's not for a while, but it would not surprise me if in the next year or two we see something absolutely epic. And I don't mean that in a good way, occur economically.
No, I definitely think that the next election is 2.5 years away. Is that where we are now? Presidential election.
Well, November is a couple months away now. So, we're like, yeah.
We have 2.5 to go with an administration that I don't feel is trying to address anything. Prior administrations weren't great, but I do think some of them had departments that were trying to do things. But now I don't feel like any of these departments are doing anything except covering up other things. Like we don't release job numbers anymore, or
accurate ones at all, even close to being accurate. Yeah,
they did sneak.
We revise them.
50,000 jobs were created last month in the last job report, which is there's 50 states, so that means 10,000 jobs a state. And that we know doesn't work that way because New York, California, and Florida and Texas take a big percentage of that. So you take those numbers out. That doesn't mean that there were 10,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. That means there were probably like 3,000 in Pennsylvania because a bunch of them were in New York or California. Not again, because you've got population centers and we don't even know the quality of these jobs. They just know that these were jobs. Some of them are summer seasonal jobs that are going to go away. And if you take those out, then how many jobs were actually created? If anything, it's probably net zero. It's probably, we're still losing jobs. Companies are acting like they're hiring, but they're not. Except your local things that have to hire, like a local school district has to hire a phys ed teacher. Those jobs are going to happen, but they're not like, we're not building plants. We're losing those jobs like crazy. Some of them are just closing and some of them are moving to other places. So this thing that the tariffs were going to bring more manufacturing in the United States just is not a thing. It was never going to happen. It just isn't. I don't even know we have the skilled labor for half of the stuff that they're asking about. Going back to the first topic.
I think we're going to end there for today. Thanks for watching. Again, I didn't self-promote because I'm terrible at it, but you can like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff if you made it to the end. Please support this small content creator trying to make some content in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin only podcast. As always, don't trust, verify. Until next week, peace. Thank you.